Hi there grade 10 learners, and welcome to our video today where we are revising. We're just going to go through everything that we covered in term 2. So this is your term 2 revision video, and we're looking specifically at theory. Now we would have started with module 1.6, so let's go through this. So 1.6 started with integrated software. Okay, now the first thing we need to ask is, or just remember, is what is integrated software? And here we are talking about a few pieces of software that's actually built into one software package. For example, Microsoft Office. It's one CD, it's one disk, it's one installation file that has 5 or 6 different individual programs, but they've been integrated into one software package. So let's look at some of the advantages. We can see that separate packages have a similar interface, as we see with Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. Separate packages are designed to share and exchange data, and we know we can do that between the two or between all of them. And it's sold as a suite of programs. So when we talk about the Microsoft Office suite, we're actually talking about the programs that make up the piece of software that we call Microsoft Office. Okay, so that you should know. There are a few examples. Please know how to give the advantages and be able to give some examples as well. Then we went into license agreements, and the main thing here is just knowing what an EULA is, so an end user license agreement. And what is that? It's a legally binding contract between you as the user and the software company. Okay, and there they give you a few examples of that. So just know what it stands for and how to explain it. Okay. Then we went on to software piracy. So your license agreement directly influences what we're talking about now, our software piracy, because the license agreement, you are agreeing, with the company as to how you are going to use that piece of software. So software piracy is when you take this and you don't adhere to that agreement. You are now, installing it illegally. You are making copies. You are distributing it with your friends. And we talk about proprietary software. In other words, software that we've purchased. So you go into the shop, you buy Microsoft Office, whichever version, and then you decide to make copies of it and send it to your friends and family members. That is software piracy. Okay? Most software now requires activation or registration online in order to crack down on this. It is a crime and can result in hefty fines and even jail time. Okay. Now, they went into some more detail on the single user license, which means that you can install one copy of the software on your machine. Okay, your machine, not somebody else's machine. You can also make a backup copy. So you've got your laptop or desktop, you buy that piece of software, you can use it on that machine, install it on that machine as many times as you want to, but on that machine, and you can have a backup copy as well in case you lose the original CD. That's the only way that you can actually be safe if you have a single user license. A site license is a bit different. Now, when we talk about a site, we're talking about an area. Okay, so your school, for example, would be a site. So what this then means is that we've got one license for the entire area. Okay, an unrestricted number of installations within the company or organization. Now, it is more expensive to purchase, but long term, it is a whole lot cheaper. Think about it this way. A single user license for Microsoft Office could cost you in the region of 600 Rand to 1,000 Rand, somewhere there. Now imagine you have 100 computers at your school. You need to take that 1,000 Rand and multiply that by 100. Whereas Microsoft might charge you half of that amount for a site license, and you have unlimited installs as long as it stays at that site. So you can install it on the desktops, laptops, anything like that, as long as it remains at school. Even the teachers' laptops, it's also fine. It's also called, remember that term, volume licensing. Then we went on to freeware and shareware, and please, you know the difference. Freeware, free to download, use, distribute. Shareware, free to download and use for a limited period of time, and then you would have to pay for the full version. And then we had open source software. We're talking about software that we can download for free, use, and modify. Modify is the key term here. Okay, so we can modify that as well. You have examples like Linux, LibreOffice, and Java programming. So those are just a few. If you know of others, you're more than welcome to use them in the exam. They will sometimes ask you for the advantages and disadvantages, so you can go through that. Just know about 2 of them. Don't know really more than that. And that should then suffice on that side. Then the copyright. Please know what these terms mean. So copyright refers to the legal right to make copies, publish and sell. If you are doing that, you are going against the copyright. You are, you have this copyright infringement because you have not adhered to that, and that's where you get into trouble. When we talk about intellectual property, please know how to explain this. It's a broader concept. It recognizes the ownership of the person that came up with the original idea. For example, here in South Africa, the guy who came up with the idea of the SMS, he was suing, I think, one of the companies because he came up with the idea of the SMS, showed them sort of how it should work. And then one of the other cell phone companies actually, or the company that he was work for, they ran with the idea. So now he's actually sued them for this being his intellectual property. In other words, he came up with the idea. Creative Commons, non-profit organizations that promote the sharing and free use of knowledge and products legally. Okay, that's the important bit there. We wanted to system software. We start to talk about software that does things on the entire system. So compression software, making it smaller. Okay, that's what things like WinZip does. Now this falls under utility programs. Please, utility programs have a specific purpose. They are there to add to the features of the operating system. So here we've got things like WinZip, and as I just explained now, it makes things smaller. So it takes your file and folder and makes it smaller. It does not damage the file or folder. You've got backup utilities. Now, they will ask you, why do you need to backup? Why is it a good idea? Obviously, files can be deleted, files can become corrupt, and then you have another copy of those files. That's why you want to use that. Drivers, not the guy driving the taxi or the bus or your parents. No, that's not the driver. The driver is a piece of software. And what does it do? It speaks to the computer and tells it what hardware is connected. Have you ever seen when you plug in a flash drive? You got a flash drive, you plug it in, and immediately a pop-up comes up on the screen. There's a driver that's been speaking and saying, "Hey, operating system, hello? Yes, here's a piece of hardware plugged in." And then it'll ask you, what do you want to do with this? Okay, this is what I want to do. Right, and then it opens. You install a printer. You connect it up. Windows is like, "Hey, what's going on here? Something's been plugged in." You've got to use the CD, tell Windows, or that software on the CD tells Windows how to work with that piece of hardware. So just bear that in mind. Okay, then we went on to module 1.7, where we spoke further about hardware concepts. Please, hardware, physical hardware, okay? Input and output. Remember, input, giving things to the PC, instructions to the PC, output, bringing things out of the PC, okay? So we've got our pointing devices like our mouse, our touchpad. Just know the difference between those two. There are our touchpad buttons as well. We've got things like your pen input, your trackball. Please go and look for examples of these things. I'm actually going to get one of these pen input devices, and then I'm going to do a little demo so you can see how it works. Our pointing gestures when it comes to our touchscreen devices. Okay, we know we can pinch, expand, swipe, drag, touch. We do this every single day. All right, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but that they would have touched on. Then your sensors. The most important one here, or maybe I shouldn't say most important, but the one that they ask the most is the accelerometer. Why? Because people keep thinking it has something to do with speed. Okay, because accelerate, moving faster. So they're thinking, it's got to do with the speed of the laptop or the device. No, look at that. It detects movement, changes the orientation of the screen. Guys, when I take my phone and I do that and the picture flips, that's the accelerometer sensor that's actually doing that. Temperature sensor speaks for itself. Light sensor, it adjusts to light. And then your electronic compass as well. So those are just some of the sensors that we find on the devices that we have today. Then we have our gaming devices like our joysticks, again giving instructions to the PC or to the console, our game controller, and lovely steering wheel. I need to get me a nice setup there. But that's all giving instructions to the device. Very importantly, one of the areas that it's going to come up in tests and exams are digital cameras. All right, knowing how they work, why they are better than what we had before. Here they mentioned pictures can be downloaded. Most smartphones have digital cameras built into them. It's easy to share, instantly. The resolution is good as well. So those are just a few things on the digital cameras. You want to take note of that. Okay, just importantly. Then your scanners, you needed to know there as well. Difference between a flatbed and a sheet fed. Now your flatbed looks like the one that you see there. Why do they call it a flatbed? Because you're putting the page flat down on that screen, and then we're closing it like you would close a bed. Okay, you pull up the sheets, the duvet, there you go. You are in bed, nice and snug in there, and that's your flatbed. Your sheet fed one is a bit different. Like when you use a copy machine, it pulls in each sheet of paper and then scans that. Now, what's the purpose of your scanning or your reading device? It scans the image into the computer. It's largely replaced by the use of cameras on mobile devices, because most of us are taking photos of the documents and things. We can also scan QR codes these days. So that is very good on that side. Remember your barcode readers, what they do. Remember, they store information. So when you scan that barcode, like at the till, the individual scans the barcode, and what comes up, the price and the details of that particular product. So there we see. And what it also does is it updates the central database. So when you purchase a can of baked beans, you bought in bulk, you bought like 10 tons of baked beans. Then what happens is, as that person scans it and it's purchased, it updates the record books and the stock, control, so that, for example, let's say Checkers now knows that, okay, so 10 tons of baked beans have actually left the store. So 10 have now been sold. So benefits at the bottom there, you can see speed and accuracy, and it's updating the stock control as well. Then we have biometric scanners. So scanning using some sort of, some part of your body, whether it's the eye or the fingerprint or your voice or your face or something like that, but something that's unique to you, biologically unique to you. Okay. We've also got card input, where our details are stored magnetically on our cards. I mean, you can see these days we just tap and go. Tap and go. Why? Because it picks up on that card everything it needs, authorizes it, and there we go. And for me, it's very convenient, but it's a little bit dangerous when you don't have to put your pin in anymore. Okay, so yeah, we just bear that in mind. Then our RFID tags, our radio frequency identification tags, small radio devices that store and transmit data, often used when you want to track people, especially when it comes to, like these marathons, Iron Man, those type of things. When they in the wild and they want to track, different animals, they can use these sort of tags as well. And then character recognition. These are three that are very important. Now, most of us at this point, we should know OCR, okay, which is your optical character recognition. This is where we scan in a page, and yeah, I don't know, something with me now. You scan in a page and the software can actually read the letters on the page, and it turns it into, instead of a picture, a document, right? So now you can go and edit it. That's the point. We've also got OMR, which is optical mark recognition, where you can scan and mark tests. Now, I know with UNISA, when I was doing my exams, if it was a multiple choice exam, they would have one sheet of paper, you would fill it in with pencil, and all they did was they would take that and pop that through the machine, and the machine would mark it. So it would be using OMR. Then magnetic ink character recognition, or MICR, checks the magnetic ink on checks. Now, we don't really use much of that today because most of what we do is digital anyway. Okay, but it's just so that you know. Then video and audio input, getting video onto the PC. How do you do that? You can record it directly from a webcam. Look, I'm using my digital camera here, so I'm getting it directly into my PC. You can transfer it, from your cell phone via a cable or Bluetooth or wirelessly, whatever it is. Okay. What about audio? Audio can be used for recording and mixing music. Like I've got a microphone here that's capturing all the audio. Recording narration for presentations and videos, inputting text, giving the computer commands. Okay, so those are all the things you would have gone through. There is, and I know I've touched on this before, voice recognition software where I can actually speak into the microphone and it goes through that software, and the software then converts it to actual text. Now it's very nice, but just understand it must get used to your voice. It must get used to your way of speaking. So it's going to take a bit of time, but eventually it should be okay. Only problem is sometimes you're dealing with software that has been developed by our American friends. So our fairly flat accent is, it's just not going to cut it. We are going to be speaking and the software is going to be throwing up words that we haven't even said. So just bear that in mind. Sound is also used to give feedback. In other words, giving a sound back to the user when they're interacting with a computer. Makes it easier for disabled people. It makes games more realistic. Obviously, those of us who play games, we know. And it can turn your computer into a real entertainment device. So these are just some of the things when it comes to audio. Our data projectors, we know this already. We know what a data projector does. We've seen it in class. We know it takes the image and throws it up onto a bigger area so that we can see it. There are different types of projectors as well, and it just affects the image quality that is given. Then we have something called a multifunction printer. Now, a printer prints, but when there's a multifunction printer, it means it does more than just print. So you've often seen the printers where they say print, copy, scan. The minute it does more than one thing, it becomes a multifunction device. So it can print. Most of them today can print, scan, email. They can make copies as well. Our fax machine, for example, is a standalone device, which means it could only scan a document and transmit it to another scanner. Another fax machine. Some fax machines later on could actually fax to email. So the person would fax and it would send it through and it would come into your email. Okay. Then storage devices and media, very important. Okay, please, I know some of this can be a little bit outdated in terms of like talking about CDs, DVDs. Many of us don't use these things to store info. We use our trusty flash drive, okay? But just understand this. We need to know where we started and move forward from there. So our CDs could hold about 700 megs. Our DVDs, 8.5 gigs if we're using both sides. And then our Blu-ray would deal with like 50 gigs or more. But you'd have to have special software in order to transfer the files over to that CD, okay, or DVD or Blu-ray. You'd also have to have an optical drive. So you'd have to have a physical drive in your computer or your laptop that would be able to read those CDs and DVDs. So the drive itself, like a CD player, I don't know who I'm speaking to. Maybe some of you have never seen a CD player. Go Google it, please. A CD player is an optical device that reads media. Okay? When we talk about optics, we're talking about the eye. So the optical device actually has a little laser inside that reads the contents of that disc. Okay? Bear with me. All right, then we've got our memory cards. Most of us know this already. We've got our SD cards, we've got our memory stick, we've got our compact flash. Depending on which device you are using, like the memory, in fact the compact flash, that will be used in certain devices. Some of you have SD cards that you're using in your phones to expand the memory. So yeah, that's just fine. These are all just different devices where we can store our info to. Right, and then taking care of the PC system, that is not too bad. A little bit cluttered, but it's okay. Okay, you should see what my area looks like sometimes. You want to keep magnetic sources away from the computer. Why? Because you're talking about electronic devices. It can mess with things. You want to keep the area dust-free, well ventilated. You don't want to have drinks next to your computer equipment, guys. Water and electronic components do not mix. Okay, they do not mix at all. And then, please don't eat over your keyboard. Don't sit in your bed with your supper and your laptop. Okay, inevitably something is going to go wrong. So just be careful with that. There's our optical storage media. When they talk about media, we're not talking about this physical device over here. This is an optical drive. That is an optical drive. The disk is the media. the CD, the DVD, the Blu-ray, that is an example of the media. In other words, where are you storing this to? Where are you storing it on? That becomes the media. So with your CDs and that, you want to try and protect them from scratches. You want to clean them carefully. You want to hold them by the edges, okay? Because otherwise, yeah, you're going to end up with a lot of problems with those discs. Then for the processing, we've got our motherboard. Here's a beautiful picture of the motherboard, and we can see there are two RAM slots for our memory. We can see over here we've got a connector for our power supply. Here we've got the old keyboard and mouse. Our keyboard and mouse. I remember that because the keyboard was always purple, always had a purple connector at the end, and the mouse green. We've got HDMI serial ports. We've got a VGA. We've got USB, 2 network cards, and a 3-channel sound card, and an extra port, maybe for something extra that you want to pop into the PC as well. So yeah, we've got everything on that motherboard over there. Just know your CPU. What does it stand for? Central Processing Unit. What does it do? And how is it measured? Okay, it's measured in gigahertz. It plugs into a socket on the motherboard. The working part of the CPU is a very small piece of silicon, and it contains billions of electronic circuits. So please, this is very important. Okay. Then the difference between your RAM and ROM. RAM being random access memory. This is where the CPU keeps all the data and instructions. It is volatile, which means it changes, and is supplied in modules called DIMMs, those black slots that I showed you on the motherboard. Okay, it is fast and it is expensive in terms of it costing more per gig than storage. When we talk about storage, we're talking about a hard drive. Okay, then our read-only memory, special chip that holds the instructions needed to start the computer and load the operating system. Guys, basically after that, you don't have to know anything else. Obviously, we will know that it's non-volatile, but that's about it. Okay. Then 2.1 dealt with networks. So please know how to define a network. There's our definition. It's 2 or more computing devices. Okay, not computers, computing devices connected through some sort of media. That could be a cable, wireless, whatever it is, for the purpose of sharing information. That is what a network is. You then get local area networks. In other words, a network defined or confined to one specific geographical area. Or a global network where you have many of these networks that have been linked together to function as one global network, for example, the internet. Okay. Then some advantages. You need to know some of these advantages. I'm not really going to go into much detail. We know these things. You can share hardware. You can share communication. You can share files. You can share access to the internet as well. So just understand those things. Okay. Centralization of data, because we can save everything we have onto a server and everyone can then access it from there. So yes, just know those things as well. Also, when you want to book tickets, they just give us an example of booking tickets online as well. Flexible access to things. I mean, I can work from home and log into my PC at work. You know, you can do things online, internet banking. They just give you a couple of examples, so go through that. And then leisure as well. The fact that you can watch Netflix, you know, as an example, anywhere you want to, with a device and an internet connection. You can listen to the radio anywhere. You know, check out magazines, all these different things, online gaming, the whole works. These are, again, they're giving you a lot of advantages, and well, a lot of advantages at this point. You don't have to know all of them. Okay, I stick to the rule of thumb with like 2. I know 2 and I can explain 2, because it's really a lot to take everything in. Then our disadvantages, again here also, know at least 2, because if you know 2 advantages and you can explain them, you know 2 disadvantages, and you can explain what the network is, boom, you sort it. Okay, you sort it. Then module 6.1 was the last one for the term, and it dealt with a strategy to solving problems. Now, module 6 focused on what some of you would be dealing with, and that would be the pets. Okay, so this was one of the ways, you know, of also helping you with that. So they dealt with how to look at problems. They gave you a couple of scenarios here. And they're saying, again, here's one. Suppose you get a mark of 50 for a test and you want to know whether the mark is good or bad. Well, how are you going to know that? How are you going to know that? You first need to find out what the test is out of. So now you're like, okay, well, 50 out of 60. Hey, that's not bad at all. Convert it to a percentage, over 80% distinction. Beautiful. I'm happy with that. Okay. But you wouldn't know unless you knew what the mark was out of. Okay. So they want to give us a couple of basic steps to follow. We need to analyze the problem, collect data and information about it, solve the problem, and present the solution. Guys, if you are busy with your pets, then these modules, I know in grade 11 module, it's module 6, and I think in grade 11 as well, yeah, 10, 11, and then there is a little bit in grade 12. It's all designed to help you with the pets, so use it, okay? Remember, our questions, we were asking questions in the pets, so they just chat a little bit about the role of questions. Please know the difference between a closed question and an open question. Very important. They always ask it, even in grade 12 CAT. Okay. Then the difference between data and information. At this point, we should know that. Okay. Information sources. Where can we get information from? Well, electronic media, from computers, smartphones, radio. Please also, when you do this, reference correctly. Just reference correctly. Some of the information sources, again, some more of them: printed media, books, magazines, journals. You can also get information through questionnaires, through people, via interviews, anything like that. So they just go through all of these different things and give you some important notes when it comes to interviews. What should you be doing when you are conducting an interview? What sort of notes should you be making? Oh, yeah, and I think that's it. Yes. So grade 10s, that's everything we've covered for term 2. I'll do another video where I go through the prac for grade 10, and then grade 11 and 12 I'll be doing the same for you as well. So guys, thanks so much for watching. Share this with everyone, and let's help everyone do the best they can with the CAT exams.